I'm Kerry Holman, President of the Bond County Historical Society. Welcome to another one of our legacy interviews. Today is April 7th, 2023, and we're in O'Fallon, Illinois. And today's legacy interview is with Bond County resident Carl Hall. Carl, we appreciate your willingness to talk with us today very much. I'd like to start off these interviews by making sure we've got everybody's full name. Do you have a middle name, Carl?
Eugene.
Eugene. Carl Eugene.
Carl E. Hall is the way I signed my name.
Carl E. Hall. Good, good. And tell us where you were born.
Bond County, Illinois, north of Greenville, LaGrange Township.
Very good.
Went to Cherry Grove School.
Cherry Grove. Okay. Very good. Good. And what were your parents' names?
Edgar Reed Hall, Louise Stever Hall. That was my parents.
Very good. And you have brothers and sisters?
I had one brother, Edgar Hall. He was killed in the North African invasion during by the French there. And then I had another sister, Wax, who was next to my oldest brother. She joined the Wax, Eva Hall. And then I had another brother, Bill Hall. He was drafted in the military. And then I had a sister, Kathleen, that was 18 months older than I was. And then in 1945, I enlisted in the Army Air Corps.
Ah, very good. Good, good, good. Did you know your grandparents?
Oh, yeah, I knew my grandparents. Was Frank Stever, was my grandfather. He was, got older, he was a caretaker at the Greenville City Park. And then my grandmother, his wife, passed away at an early age with cancer. And I didn't get to know her too well because I was only, I guess, probably 6, 7 years old when she passed away. Then on my dad's side was Tom Hall and Rebecca Hall, and I got to know them good because they lived on the next farm close to ours. And of course, my dad was a farmer because when my dad and my uncle Doc, William Hall, was getting ready to out of high school and everything, or out of school, they were getting ready to go into their whatever they was going to do. So my granddad told them, one of you can go to medical school and become a doctor. One of you can be a farmer. Well, my dad was sort of like me. He didn't like school. He said, I'll be the farmer. So that's how that happened.
How about
He
that?
was a farmer right next door to them.
Very good. Very good. Good, good, good. And tell us about your wife.
My wife, well, that's a different type story. I met her in Germany after the war. She was a German born and everything, but she worked for the OSI. And if I went to see her, I couldn't go in her office because she had a higher secret than I did. But I could only get a certain secret, and for some reason, she had a higher secret and wasn't supposed to because she wasn't an American citizen yet. And she had, when she was 13 years old, she remembered coming out of the bomb shelters and they'd pass out cigarettes to everybody. And whether they was young or old, they got a cigarette.
Mm. Mm.
And then, of course, from there she was a ballet dancer. She traveled in a ballet show for a while. And then
Did you and your wife have children?
had two. One daughter, Monica, who lives here in O'Fallon, and one son, Michael, lives in Belleville. I think my daughter, she was born in 1951. My son was born in 55.
Very good. Very good.
Were they born here in the O'Fallon area, or were they born elsewhere?
No, my daughter is a true African American. She was born in Africa
Oh, wow.
when I was stationed in Africa.
How about that?
That's where she was born.
Where at in Africa?
In Tripoli, Libya. That's where it was at. We had an air base there at that time. Yep.
So you lived in Bond County all the time growing up?
Yeah, until I was 17, went in the military.
Mm-hmm. And so you say you lived on a farm.
I lived on a farm, which unfortunately my dad lost it during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved up north a little bit, and up by Donaldson, worked for a gentleman called Raymond Harwood. And he had a big farm of thousands of acres. And that's where I got to paid $1 a day for riding a horse and herding cows.
Huh. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Good, good, good. And so your folks farmed until the Depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they worked for somebody else on the farm.
Sure, yeah. I think you mentioned it before, but tell us again the school that you attended.
Cherry Grove School.
Mm-hmm.
We had 8 grades when I started, and my oldest brother had just graduated, and when I started, my sister was 18 months older, but at home I had all my brothers and sisters ahead of me, and I was doing pretty good. I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, but I started school with her, and we started at the same time.
How about that?
Yeah, Cherry Grove School. And at that time, there was Miss Grace Crutchley was a teacher. She was a farm ladies. And you had a Anthony store where the theater is now. That was an Anthony store. Oh, well, I guess the theater is still there.
It is.
Because when I started going to the movies, it was Lyric Theater east of town, down by the big furniture store down there. It was the theater at that time.
Yes, I understand that what was during my early time in Greenville, Metzger's Furniture Store was at one time the Lyric Theater.
Yeah, well, actually, the theater was behind it.
Behind it.
Or beside it,
Beside it.
however you want to put
Yeah.
it. And that wasn't too big, so then they made the Bond County Theater.
At Cherry Grove School, Carl, what kind of games would the children play there?
Well, in the summertime, we'd play ring around the rosy, you'd go around and play. And you'd play one end of the field, the other, I forget what name we call that. In the wintertime, once in a while it'd freeze over enough on the reservoir there that we'd skate to school, and then we'd go down back of the schoolhouse where the lake was, and get a can of some kind. Everybody got a stick. We paid chinny chin can, sort of like hockey.
Yeah.
Oh,
Each end would have, if you got it to the end, whoever you was, you got a goal. And you might only have 2 or 3 players on a team, but we'd skate on that and hit that tin can around all the time.
that does.
Yep,
That sounds great.
yep.
Yeah.
And later on, they started putting up basketball deals, but that was all out on dirt, so it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
When I left Cherry Grove School, I went 6 years there. Then that's when I started at Reno. And in Reno, we had this physical education, playing basketball. Now that was one of my favorite things
Ah,
because before that it was all study.
ah. Got to be involved in some basketball
Yeah.
when you got into Reno.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your farm was near Reno. Was that the closest community?
The first farm, the, the,
Yes.
our first farm was closer to Betterton and Show Creek area, Little Show Creek. And then when we moved to Harwood's farm, that was up close to Donaldson. So it was right on the Montgomery County line.
Sure. And so that would have been when you were in grade school.
Yeah,
when you
from
made that move.
when we left Cherry Grove, I was in the 6th grade. Finished the 6th grade there. And when we moved, I and my sister was actually in the Ellen Point grade school district. But the Scott boys were also in that district, and they were going to Reno, and they was telling us all about basketball and all of that. So they talked us into going to Reno rather than going to Ellen Point.
Very good. Good. Yeah. So growing up, where did your family shop?
Hmm?
Where did your family buy goods and services? Did they go into Reno?
No. At our first farm, we went to Greenville.
Ah.
And the second one, since we lived on Highway 127, we still went to Greenville most of the time.
Good. What do you remember about Greenville on those shopping trips when you were growing up?
You know, the most thing I remember is one year, it was Christmas, just before Christmas, and we went in the old, big old heavy wagon, horses, and it was snowing. Coming home, my mother brought some crackers and bologna. Coming home, we eating that under the blankets in the wagon, and that was there was sometimes we went in a wagon because you couldn't get through the roads in a car, too muddy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that from Fred Baumberger too. Did you know Fred Baumberger?
Yeah, oh, very well, yeah, real good.
Mm-hmm.
He graduated from high school just before I started the grade school.
Oh.
Because Reno was 8th grade and 3 years of high school.
Mm-hmm.
But he graduated a year before I did, before I started.
Yeah.